And we have this pie that we made. Now, I have to say, this pie looks a lot worse than I'm sure it tastes, because you can't go wrong with sugar, vanilla, and chocolate. Hey guys, this is Katie with Vintage and Vinyl, back with another great video for you today. And in this video, you can tell that we are not in the normal spot in front of the Coke wall, and that is because we are celebrating Patrick over at Trusty Huckster Mercantile's birthday. So I am participating in the Trusty's birthday party collaboration, and I'm so thrilled to be a part of it. Now, this was a fun challenge because not only did we have to cook a recipe, but we had to make a recipe. And the biggest challenge was it had to be before the 1970s. So I'm very excited about that. Now, I am going to attempt to make 2 recipes. I don't know if that's going to work out or not, but the first recipe is pretty straightforward and it's really fun. It is from this Hamilton Beach cookbook from 1948. This was a gift from Tiger over at Tiger's Timeless Treasures. And in this book is just a bunch of yummy treats, which I am so glad about because this is not nasty Jell-O. So yay, I get to eat something good. This is chocolate chiffon pie from the party section, so very fitting for Patrick's birthday. And we are going to make this today in my kitchen. I'm going to show you all the steps, what you need, and we're going to jump into that right now. Okay, so this is the cookbook that I have from 1948. It is a Hamilton Beach cookbook, and the graphics in this, guys, are just fantastic. It's got the old Hamilton Beach mixer on the front, which you just can't beat, and some of the advertisements for it on the back. Look at those graphics, aren't they just fabulous? And then when you open it up, you've got all these yummy recipes, and the recipe we're going to be making today is chocolate chiffon pie. It is in the party section of this book, and there's so many other good recipes though. Ice cream, cookies, candies, breads, frostings, party cakes. I mean, the list just really does go on and on. And what's pretty cool too about this book is it gives you some basic measuring tips here, some quick conversions if you need that while you're baking. I mean, this is just a really, really handy thing to have around. It shows you the difference between eggs, shortening, and baking powder. There's all kinds of fantastic information in here. Now, one of the things I thought was really cool when I was reading through this recipe is it mentions the mixer. Now, I don't have the vintage mixer. I wish I did. That would make a great video. But it said that you need the small bowl and the large bowl of the mixer. So we're going to kind of take some liberties with this recipe since I don't actually have the physical mixer to use. But I've got my KitchenAid, so that will work just fine. So let me tell you some of the ingredients in this recipe. It's a very simple recipe with ingredients most people have at home, which is fantastic. So if you want to cook along as you're watching this video, feel free to do that. I really think this one is going to turn out pretty good because I love pie and I love chocolate. So what can go wrong? So we've got 1 tablespoon of gelatin in this recipe, a cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of flour, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 4 egg yolks, 2 3/3 cup of milk, 2 ounces of chocolate, 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla, 4 egg whites, and you're going to need it baked into an 8 or 9-inch pie shell. So very easy things to acquire and great little recipe to do for Patrick's birthday because it's yummy and it's just going to be fantastic. So I've already kind of prepped some of my ingredients here, so I'll kind of walk you through what I have. And the first thing I did is I got my 3/4 cup of milk. Now, there is a difference if you are cooking between a wet measure and a dry measure. This book doesn't specify, but I would use a wet measuring cup versus your, measuring cup like this. That's more of your dry measure. So you get a more accurate measurement of your ingredients. The next thing it wants is a full cup of sugar. So I've got that here, my cup of sugar. It wanted a tablespoon rather, of gelatin. So here's that. And then I've got my flour in here. I've got my vanilla right here. So I've kind of just pre-measured all of these out to make it a little bit easier for this video. The other thing that I did is I went ahead and separated my egg yolks from my egg whites, and I don't know that that's going to show up, but there it is. So you will need to do that for this recipe. Now what I used for the gelatin is I just got Knox unflavored gelatin, so here it is in the package. They didn't specify, but I don't think that you'd be using any type of flavored gelatin because that wouldn't go along with the chocolate. So we've just got our plain Knox, and then I just got regular Publix brand vanilla extract, but you can use whatever brand you have at home. And then you're going to need a pie crust. Now, you could be really extra fancy and use one of the pie crust recipes from this book and actually make your own pie crust. I have not had the greatest luck making my own pie crust in the past. I love to cook, but I am a horrible baker. I can only make like 1 or 2 things in the oven, so I went ahead and made it a little easier for myself and just got your standard pre-made frozen pie crust here from the grocery store. Again, whatever brand you have is just fine. And that's fine too, because they just specified an 8 or 9 inch pie shell, so I don't feel like I'm cheating too much here since they didn't give a recipe for the crust. So that's basically all you need. Now with the chocolate, they said 2 ounces worth of chocolate. So what I did was I put this bowl onto a scale, and it weighed about 9 ounces, and then I just grated in 2 extra ounces of chocolate. So when you're doing something like that, make sure to count the weight of the bowl in so you know how much to actually add in as you're looking at the scale and putting in your ingredients. Now the chocolate that I got from the grocery store was a mistake. I bought hazelnut chocolate instead of baker's chocolate. I think it will work out just fine, but I did go ahead and grate it. The recipe just said 2 ounces of chocolate. I went ahead and grated it there so that I have it just mixing in a little bit better, because that hazelnut can be kind of chunky, and I think this pie is supposed to be silky, so I went ahead and grated it with a few extra pieces I left whole just for me to snack on while I'm making this video. I love chocolate. Okay, so that is it, folks. That's really all you need. Of course, you're going to need some sort of a KitchenAid mixer, which I have right here to my right. And you will need a double boiler because you're going to have to do some double boiling. Now, if you don't have a fancy double boiler, you can always use a regular heat-safe bowl over the top of a pot and it will work just fine. I cook a lot. I do a lot of hollandaise sauce, so I got myself a double boiler. So I kind of have a little something fancier than the average person, but you can do whatever you have at home. Okay, so let's get into actually cooking this recipe. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and bake our pie crust at 350 degrees for about 12 to 15 minutes. That way it can go ahead and cool while we're getting all of our other ingredients ready to go. So what I'm going to do is get the pre-made crust. I put it already into my pie pan. I like the pie pan. You can use a baking rack or a oven sheet if you do not have this, but this works really well. The other thing I found with these pre-made pie crusts is that it really does help to have some pie weights in the bottom while you're baking it. So I just have a sack of pie weights that I keep, and basically what they are is just little tiny marbles. Now if you have dogs, you want to be careful that these don't spill on the floor, but they look like little tiny marbles. They're not very large, and you just pour them into the bottom of the pie crust, and basically what that does is it weighs down the bottom and prevents that from getting all bubbly and cracked. So it really does make a difference, I found, when doing that. You don't need the whole bag, just enough to kind of coat the bottom and keep it weighted down. So let's get this into the oven, and then we're going to go over to the stove and do some double boiling. Okay folks, so things have heated up in the kitchen, and I have added my salt, flour, and sugar to the top of the double boiler. I just poured in some milk, and I've got this on medium to low heat, and I am constantly stirring so we don't have anything burning, sticking, or clumping. The next thing I'm going to do is add in the egg yolks. Now, We do not want to scramble the eggs, so we've got to do this very carefully, almost like making a hollandaise sauce. We are going to temper the eggs and pour them in very slowly with constant stirring. I've already lowered the heat just a little bit, so just slowly, very slowly add in the eggs so that we don't have any problems with scrambling. We do not want that to happen. That would just ruin the entire recipe. So I'm constantly stirring, pouring in eggs, just a little bit at a time until they are combined and mixed into our mixture here. And this is going to take a little while, so I will be back with you when this is all done. Okay folks, so all of our eggs are added in. We have no scrambling. It is a very smooth, nice consistency, and we are now going to turn off the heat. We don't want to cook the eggs too much, and we are going to slowly add in our chocolate and get that all melted. So I'm just going to start pouring in a little bit of the chocolate here, get that melted, and we'll stir that around. It will melt and thicken up really nicely with our mixture here, and then we'll get this all cooled off. Look at that chocolate, man, doesn't that look good? Ooh, this is gonna be delicious. Yes, sirree. Ooh, I'm loving this. Coming together really nicely. Now, as you can see, as this is thickening up, I'm continuing to stir at a very good pace here. We don't want anything to sit and get burnt or clumpy. We want it to be all nice and smooth and consistent. You can see probably a little bit of the hazelnut chunks there. We are going to just ignore that since I bought the wrong chocolate, and I'm going to now move this off the heat. We don't want this continue to cook because we'll scramble our eggs, so I'm going to remove that off the heat. Okay folks, so I just finished using the stove. I've removed the double boiler from the heat, and I've transferred all of its contents to a large mixing bowl. Now in the recipe they say to use the large mixing bowl attachment with your Hamilton mixer. I don't have that. That would be really cool if I did, but this large bowl will work really, really well. You want to do that process rather quickly so that your hot liquid doesn't stay in a hot pan and continue to cook. We want to get that cooled off. So what I'm going to do now is add the rest of the vanilla into this bowl here and get it mixed up, and then we will set it aside to cool. So there's our vanilla, and as you can see, there's some hazelnut chunks in here. You know, I think that's going to add an interesting texture to the recipe. It's not supposed to be this way, but I hope it's a happy accident. And you get that nice silky smooth pie with a little bit of crunch. Now you can see here the consistency is beautiful. We really have a nice smooth velvety consistency. That's what you want at this stage, and we are going to set this aside and go work on our egg whites. So that's going to be our next task. We're going to let this get cool off, and then we'll get the pie out of the oven. Okay, so I've got 4 egg whites going into the bowl of KitchenAid. Now, you see this attachment? This is the one you're going to want to use. It's the wire whisk attachment. You don't want to use the other attachments like the paddle attachment because it's not going to work well for this recipe. Now we're going to lower the head of the KitchenAid mixer, lock it into place, and set it to 8 speed and whisk vigorously for 1 minute until stiff peaks form. That is what the recipe says. Now I just love watching egg whites inflate. I just think it's so magical. And you know, you don't want to whisk this too long or the egg whites will deflate. And you can see here that we're getting some really nice stiff peaks, which is so exciting. And I think this recipe is going to turn out so well. So we're going to turn off this mixer, and then we are going to fold our egg whites into our main pie filling. So let's go do that, folks. The pie filling we made in the double boiler is now cooled, and to this we are going to add in our egg whites. Now we want to do this very carefully because egg whites can deflate. So when folding in egg whites, you want to be very delicate. Don't go too quickly or mash it all in. So I am cutting down the middle with my spatula, and then I'm just gently stirring it around and folding it in best that I can. Now it is a little hard with the gelatin because the gelatin is already set a little bit, so this wasn't the easiest task in the world to do. So I did my best getting it all combined here. But look how yummy this is already looking. That chocolate is just so decadent. So I've taken the pie crust out of the oven. It is golden brown, but it did have a little accident on its way from the oven to the counter, but it will be fine. I don't have another one, so we're just going to have to make do, and really I think it's all going to taste the same in the end. Now I'm pouring in our pie filling. Now I have to say this was a little bit challenging because the gelatin is just very thick and it had already started to set. So it was really hard getting those egg whites folded in perfectly. And it kind of looks a little clumpy here, but I don't think, again, that this is going to matter. I'm just kind of spreading out the top to make it look as pretty as it can, because right now, honestly, it doesn't look that great. But I already did a little taste test with the spoon, you know, and it tastes just fine. So I'm not worried about it. But I am going to let this set up in the fridge and really get nice and firm. There's no baking required after this, so just put it in the fridge. You can leave it covered or uncovered and let it get really nice and firm. Okay, folks, so the pie is setting up in the fridge. We got the dishes done behind us, and now we are ready to get rocking and rolling on our next recipe of the day. And we better skedaddle because Patrick's birthday is coming up really soon. So the next recipe we're going to do is an entree. So we've got our dessert and our entree for Patrick's big birthday celebration. And what we're cooking up is this fabulous recipe from the calendar of sandwiches. So 365 days with different sandwich recipes. This is an antique cookbook that I got from Pam Blanchard, and this is just fabulous. So if we open up to October 12th, we will see that the recipe is egg and smoked salmon sandwiches, which I just think is so fun. One, because I love eggs, but two, I really, really love a good smoked salmon. Every Christmas, my grandmother orders the special smoked salmon from Fairbanks, Alaska, and here it is, Captain Jim's smoked salmon. So I actually already had this fabulous salmon in my pantry, and what a better time than Patrick's birthday to bring it out and enjoy it. So we're going to get cooking on this. This is a pretty simple recipe, folks, so you really don't need a lot. You will need some bread. Now, I am not sponsored by any of these companies, but I'm a big fan of my Martin's potato bread. So I've got some yummy potato bread here. I've got my Captain Jim's smoked salmon all the way from Fairbanks, Alaska. You will need some anchovy paste, doesn't matter what brand. This is just what our store had. We've got some butter. Now, I do love my Kerrygold. Nothing like good old Irish fresh butter. So we've got Kerrygold unsalted butter. Got a little bit of cayenne pepper. You're going to need some salt. You're going to need 2 hard-boiled eggs, just the yolks, and I've already prepared that with some salt and cayenne pepper. And you're going to need a little bit of parsley, and I like the flat Italian parsley. You're also going to need some mayonnaise to combine all of this together. So pretty simple ingredients. You can use whatever mayo you like. I'm a big fan of Duke's mayonnaise. I just think it's the best mayo in the world. So we will get cooking on this. The first step is really to prep your ingredients, and then it kind of goes together very quickly. So I'll show that to you right now. Okay, so we now need to get our ingredients prepped. Now I already hard-boiled the eggs, and if you don't have one of these little hard-boiled egg timers, they're fantastic. You just boil your water, put this in with the eggs, and then once it goes dark to the hard line, you're all set with hard-boiled eggs. This is a fantastic cooking tool. I really do like that. Of course, you can always get hard-boiled eggs pre-hard-boiled if that's a little bit easier for you. So we are going to chop up our parsley. Now, I like flat leaf Italian parsley. It's better than regular parsley because regular parsley is just a garnish, really. This has more flavor and is really, really good for recipes like this. So we just got a bundle of fresh parsley. Now, they don't want a whole lot. They only want just a little bit. I believe the recipe actually calls for only, yes, half a tablespoon of parsley. So that's pretty easy. So you don't need a lot. What we're going to do is take our chef's knife, and you're going to go like this and scrape off some of the leaves here on the stem. It doesn't matter if a little stem gets in, but you can get rid of the bulk of the stem. And then we are just going to bunch that together, pinch our knife, and just chop this up really nice and fine. So that's what you want to do, and get this in the eggs. Now, you know, you don't have to measure this exactly because parsley is going to be good you know, for flavor, and it's chopped up finely enough that I think it will be just fine regardless of how much you have. But you can kind of guesstimate that a half a teaspoon really isn't a whole lot, and just getting some of that in there will add some great flavor. I do love my fresh parsley. Really nice addition to any recipe. So they just want that finely chopped, which I've done. We've got that pretty chopped up, everything kind of even, ready to go. And we are going to add that into our eggs. So here's what we've got right now. We've got our eggs with cayenne and salt. They only wanted a little bit of salt. They said a half a teaspoon and a half a teaspoon of cayenne, probably because the anchovy paste is going to be pretty salty. So we're going to sprinkle that with our parsley, and we will get going on the rest of the recipe. Now, the next thing they want you to do is have some finely chopped smoked salmon. So I'm going to open the can of smoked salmon, and I am going to finely chop some of this up. You see it comes in the can like that with all the wonderful juice, and you can add some of that juice to the bowl to give it a little bit extra flavor with the eggs if you like. I'm going to use a pretty hefty amount because I love this smoked salmon and I know it's going to be good. So we're going to get that out of the can there, and then we are going to chop this up fine, just exactly like it is. Just give it a good chop all over to get it kind of broken down, because you don't want big chunks. This is not a chicken salad recipe. So I'm just kind of mincing this up, getting it chopped and prepared, and then we're going to add this to the bowl with the eggs, and then we'll put in our little bit of mayonnaise. So that's good. Don't need to be exact with this, because again, this is going on a sandwich, but you do want it to be relatively even so you don't get big chunks, you know, in one bite and little chunks in another. So it does help to kind of have all your ingredients chopped kind of evenly if you can get it. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. And we didn't need to clean our board because that parsley will be just fine mixed in. So we're going to scoop up our salmon, put it in with the eggs, and we're going to give this all a really good mix with some mayonnaise. Okay, so I've got my Duke's mayonnaise here, and they don't specify an amount, but I am just going to add what I would normally add when I am doing any type of mayo dish, which I do quite a bit with egg salad. So you just want enough to really coat everything. You don't want it to be super mayonnaise-y, because that's not really going to be good for the food. It just kind of has an awful taste. But if you like really mayonnaise-y things, by all means add more. You know, this is sort of a preference thing. So we've got the mayonnaise going in. I'm just going to do about that much for the time being, and just kind of combine this all together, get the eggs mashed up, get all of this together. So basically you're creating like a nice little salad here. Okay, fantastic. Now, the next thing that this recipe calls for is creamed butter. And then we're going to add the creamed butter to this. So this is quite an interesting little method of doing this. Adding the cream butter and the mayo. It will make it really rich though, and I think that will be good and kind of offset maybe that anchovy paste. So we've got that all mixed together. I might add just a tad bit more mayo. I think maybe it needs it, but the salmon itself, when it comes from the can, at least the Captain Jim's version, is very moist and ready to go. I'm sorry for everybody that hates that word, but there really isn't any other way to describe it. So there we go. Okay, so that is all set to go, and now we are going to cream our butter in the KitchenAid mixer. Okay, so we are ready to cream our butter. Now, what it wants is 8 tablespoons of butter, which is equal to a half a cup, as the recipe says. So I have already done that and figured out the math on it for you. So it's basically a half a stick of butter that's going to be creamed into this. And that's a lot of butter, but you know, you just can't go wrong with butter, salmon, and parsley. Just sounds good. Now, what I've got on my KitchenAid mixer here, folks, is a paddle attachment. We had earlier the wire whisk attachment. You're going to want to switch that over to cream the butter. So I've got my butter in there in the bottom. We're going to put the mixer on and let it just basically cream until it whips up and gets kind of smooth. You don't have to do this on a very high speed. You know, you can do this pretty low if you want. Of course, you know, you don't want butter flying everywhere, so I recommend putting this maybe on 1 or 3 as you're creaming it. And then you can turn it up a little bit if you like, but it really doesn't need to be that fast. So you can see down in the bowl here, I'm just creaming the butter, basically whipping it until it's smooth and kind of soft like that. That's really all you need to do, guys. This isn't going to take particularly long. Okay, so I have removed the butter. Really didn't need to be in there for very long, just to get kind of creamy and frothed up. And now we are going to go ahead and toast our bread. So this is what we've got. Now, you could do this in an old-fashioned cast iron pan. For the sake of this video, I'm going a bit more modern and using basically a toaster. So I've got my 2 slices of bread. We're going to toast it just until it's golden brown, and then we'll assemble the sandwich and we will be ready to go, folks. We are getting there, and this is looking really good, I must say. Out of all the recipes I've tried here on the channel, this one and the pie are probably the best because they're not gross. So we got our bread toasted in there, and I'll be back with you in a second to work on the assembly of the sandwich. All right, folks, it is time to assemble the sandwich. Now I've got my 2 pieces of toasted bread here. I've already spread one side with butter. This was the cream butter that we did. I added a little bit to the mixture that we made, but I didn't add a whole bunch because I just feel with the mayonnaise that that's really a lot. So I will not be adding the rest of this to the sandwich because I want to ensure it tastes good, especially since I'm using really good smoked salmon. Now the next thing we need to do is get our anchovy paste. Remember, a little goes a long way, folks. This is very strong and very salty, and we're going to add a thin layer to the other side of the bread. Now this comes in a tube, so there's the paste. We're going to open it up, puncture the hole, which is always fun and kind of satisfying to get that punctured. And then it should just come right on out. So we're just going to spread a little first onto the knife. Again, I'm not putting a whole lot on, and even the instructions in the recipe said just to spread a little bit because, again, a lot of this stuff, you know, a little bit of this goes a long way. So I'm probably not going to put that much on it. And again, I don't want to run this lovely smoked salmon. So we're just putting a little bit on for flavor, but I am including it. So there's the anchovy paste. And now we are going to assemble the sandwich with all of our wonderful insides here that we've mixed together. Our mayo, our parsley, a little bit of cayenne, eggs, and smoked salmon. Look at that, folks. Doesn't that actually look decadent? Way better than the Jell-O. So we're just going to put a little bit on here so that we don't have too thick of a sandwich. And then we're going to case it with our top piece, and we'll cut it in a nice triangle. I'm actually going to use my really sharp knife for this, so we get a nice clean cut of the sandwich, and we are going to plate it up. Now it's time to get actually serving for Patrick's party because, folks, it's coming up really soon. Now I'm going to plate this on a beautiful depression glass plate. This is the Patrick pattern, so very fitting for Patrick's birthday. Love that caning in the center. This is by Lancaster Glass Company, and it's from the 30s, and we are going to plate that up with our beautiful sandwich here so that Patrick's got a wonderful entree. Get that looking just superb, and we are going to go get that pie out of the fridge, and we are ready to taste it. Let's go, folks. The pie is now out of the refrigerator. It's all set up and ready to eat. We've got our sandwich that we just made on the Patrick Depression glass plate. Absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait to try that. It looks really good. And we have this pie that we made. Now, I have to say, this pie looks a lot worse than I'm sure it tastes, because you can't go wrong with sugar, vanilla, and chocolate, but it didn't quite have the presentation that the sandwich did, but we'll give it a go. I'm sure it's great. Had a little issue with the crust, but as I told you, I'm not really a baker. I'm more of a cook, so we'll see how this turns out. Now, I've got one extra special surprise for Patrick. Not only am I wearing my little trunk down elephant pin in honor of him and my purple hat, his favorite color, I have decorated a place setting fit for Patrick. So let's go check out the place setting and try what we made. All right, Patrick, well, I hope you've enjoyed your virtual celebration so far. Happy birthday to you. I've got a fun themed tablescape with all things that you love, and I'm going to take you through that now before we try our recipe. I've got, of course, a Dachshund plate for the pie. Now that is representative of Patrick's love and hard work for the Just One More Dachshund rescue, and that fundraiser Patrick will be doing on his channel is coming up November 11th, so stay tuned for that because we gotta help the doggies. Next up, I've got some fun Starburst Silverware. The spoon is in the Twin Star pattern by Oneida. I don't know the other patterns exactly, but they are Starburst, representing Patrick's love for vintage and antiques, and of course his resale business. And then we've got my grandmother's Anchor Hocking pitcher filled with Diet Dr. Pepper, his favorite drink. And we have a theater mug all ready for some cold milk to wash down that yummy chiffon pie, filled with a fun napkin that features a trunk down elephant. And of course, if I could be spinning this record, I would, Patrick, but I can't because it's YouTube. But just imagine happy birthday playing in the background. Got a fun little Patrick, I like to say, Patrick record there with that yummy cake graphic. And then to top it all off, I have made, Patrick, some special coasters. So these will come in your way, Patrick, very soon after this video. But I have made, out of the napkins, trunk down elephant coasters. Aren't these so fun? Look at that trunk down elephant. So thumbs up for trunk down. We got some fun coasters here, and I cannot wait to sit down and try this yummy meal. All right, it is time to try the recipe, and I am very excited about this because I love smoked salmon. So we're starting off with our entree, and I have a beautiful sandwich here that I've made. Louie wants some, so she's going a little bit bananas. Let's see how this tastes. Oh my goodness, folks, that is delicious. That sandwich right there is a winner, and I am so excited to finally eat something good on my channel. Yay! That's very exciting. I need to wash it down with some Diet Dr. Pepper, and then we'll try our dessert. Fabulous. Oh, very refreshing. And now we are going to try our dessert. Now, I have to say, this pie doesn't look very appetizing, but I think it's going to be pretty good. So we'll give it a go. And I mean, you can't go wrong, right, with chocolate. Yeah. Oh, that's scrumptious. This is very good. I mean, the crust is nice and crisp. It's set up beautifully in the fridge. It doesn't look particularly great, but it tastes good, so that's all that matters. Wow, 2 winners. I can't believe it. Oh, man, what a great party. I hope you enjoy this virtually, Patrick. And all of the viewers that are tuning in, make sure you go wish Patrick a happy birthday over on Instagram and subscribe to his channel if you haven't already. And there is a collaboration playlist with everybody involved in this challenge, so make sure you go watch everybody's videos, give the playlist some love, and spread the birthday wishes. Well, that's going to do it for me, folks. I hope you enjoyed tuning into this video and celebrating Patrick's birthday with me virtually and trying some fun vintage recipes. Now, before my next video, I'll be seeing you over on Instagram at vintage_and_vinyl. And I hope, as always, you will stay in, stay safe, and binge YouTube. Bye-bye, friends.